Good morning and good afternoon, HubSpot Nation. Welcome to a special episode of Let's Unbox HubSpot here with Maggie Philbin, who just had, all the empathy in the world when last week we were trying to read through a timeline events, our now app events update, saw the effort it required on our part to understand this word event that we see so many times in HubSpot. Not actually your first time in the Let's Build universe. I know you did a show with Brian Osa and Danielle Urban last year as kind of this custom event world started kicking off. And we appreciate you coming back today to help us understand the thing that is events in HubSpot. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm really happy to be here and excited to get a second chance at explaining some of the changes that have come in Inbound because I think they're really exciting.
Yeah, and real talk, that's why we want to do these things. We're going to do as many as we can post Inbound and beyond because, doing the daily show is one thing and just reading it out loud so it just gets out there beyond this product updates card. But then also like, okay, this is cool. What next? As we know, a challenge of keeping up with HubSpot is not only the amount of updates, but also the changing language and how we think about things.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciated you reaching out and suggesting that maybe you could help us understand a little better.
Yeah, let's start here. Because I think this is a tough one because folks don't really think about the data that's coming from all the different systems across their tech stack as what they are in HubSpot, right? You're not thinking about your Zoom webinar attendance as a timeline event, but that is a timeline event. You're not thinking about your like Google Meet data, your PandaDoc data as a timeline event, but that's what it is. So timeline events were invented a really long time ago. They're actually like one of the older things at HubSpot in general. And when they were built, they were a way for app partners in the marketplace, so folks who build apps to put in the marketplace, to put things on the HubSpot timeline. And I'm sure as soon as I say that, you can probably visualize what these look like. If you've ever seen a third-party logo on the HubSpot timeline with a description of something that happened, that's a timeline event. Those have been around a really, really long time. I think like 2008. Like I was like in college. I was in like 8th grade
Oh,
when
wow.
these were built. Yeah, they're really, really old. And they were named the way that they were named is because that's all they were built for, right? All they were built for was giving sales folks and folks who were looking at the timeline an understanding of things that are happening across the tech stack. But that hasn't been enough, I think, for a long time. These days, when folks are connecting tools from across their tech stack to their CRM, they're expecting them to actually be deeply embedded. They're expecting to be able to use that data across HubSpot in the same way they can use data that's found inside of HubSpot. So what this announcement actually is it made like many hundreds of integrations instantly a lot more useful. So previously, these little timeline events were pretty much only visible on the timeline. Now they're everywhere that a custom event could be used. So you can use them in segments. You have updated support in workflows. You could always use them in workflows, but it was very selective. Now they're available in branching logic. There's just more you can do with them there. They have their own index page. So you might have noticed custom events is gone from the main menu. It's because we renamed it event management and they're both all in one place. So all of your external behavioral data sits in one central place. And you can finally report on them. So previously, you can only look at your Zoom webinar attendance one contact at a time. Now you can actually see how are my webinars performing. I can create a journey that's how many people are actually registering for this webinar and going ahead and attending.
Well,
Now, we didn't check
can
before.
we dig into that for
Isn't that?
just 1 minute?
Yeah.
Because you just used the word webinar.
Sure.
That
Yeah.
also has an object
It does.
that we do that kind of thing in marketing events.
Mhm.
And when I asked you how we would start, like I was in love with your response because not enough people know about the data model, right? And
Yeah.
when I think of timelines, in the contact timeline, I'm thinking like, these activities are filling up, but I know these are objects.
Yeah, this
Like,
is
just real quick, the difference between like objects and
and
events.
yeah, this is like as you can see, I started to get sweaty when you pulled up the list of activities. It is confusing because conceptually there's a lot of overlap. Um, Objects and events are the two central entities in the HubSpot data model. Objects are designed to represent processes and relationships. By nature, they're meant to evolve. So, like a very simple example, contact. I'm Maggie Philbin. I'm a contact. I get a promotion. My title changes. I can update my title. That's an object. They're built to only tell you the current state. They're very, very bad at telling you how things change over time because they're actually literally not meant to. Where event data comes in is events are meant to represent moments in time. So things that happen. Events happen to or on behalf of objects in HubSpot. There's a ton of different events that we track out of the box for you. That's like a form submission, an email open, a page view. Anytime you hear a verb is usually what I say, you're probably looking at something that's stored as event data in HubSpot. And events are not objects. They're an entirely different system with different rules and different things you can do. There's two areas that this tends to get complicated. One, activities are technically objects. And conceptually, they are much more aligned with being event data. But because of their nature, because they're created by human beings and human beings make mistakes, you don't get to have them be immutable. So you'll notice that you cannot ever change like what someone responded to an email, or like you cannot change someone's form submission because you shouldn't need to. It's a fact about a moment in time that happened. Someone did this and this is what occurred, right? Versus like a activity that you're logging, you can write something wrong, you can forget to add a piece of information, and you're going to want to go back and edit it. So actually that difference explains why you can do some things with activities and you can't do other things with things that are actually stored in event data, and vice versa. I would say it's challenging to report on activity data over time because it's not an event,
Right.
which is an interesting little tidbit. The other area that the explanation of the data model gets really confusing for folks is, I would say, marketing events. And you nailed the articulation of it. Marketing events uses the word event, but it itself is not event data. It is an object that describes people going to things in real life. I'll be so real that we have debates about it internally, the language that's used here. Ultimately, like the word event means a bunch of different things in market, and it is the appropriate word to describe something that people attend in real life. But from a data model perspective, it is an object. So that's something that trips a lot of people up as well. I get a lot of questions being like, what's the difference between custom events and marketing events? And it's like, they're actually literally not the same thing at all. They just both have the same word in there. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So if we're not talking about objects and we're not talking about events / marketing events, like, can we just like add the word marketing here? Like,
Well,
that would help so
we
much.
actually used to say that.
Right.
But the take was from their side, and I'm not in charge of this area, was that because marketing is at the top, it's like kind of redundant because you're in the marketing
studio is there now. Sorry.
Yeah.
But the marketing studio, that's like the branding of it. I don't know. I hear you and I agree.
No,
you're correct. You're correct. I hear you and I agree. And I do think like, I know I sort of teased when we were chatting just before this that we're working on some ways to like make the communication of the data model easier. And I think this is one of those areas that we need to add more clarity.
Yep. Cool. Well, so what we are talking about is this event management.
Yeah.
So I'm going to click this button and just see what happens. I have not seen this before.
No, and we did not prepare before this at all. So I didn't even check to make sure that you had app events in your account, which you actually do. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, this is the good folks at Arrows that we did an unboxing of their new sales rooms, the deals rooms that they've been doing. So thankfully, because I didn't know the answer to that either. But we've got some stuff to work with. So what are we looking at here?
Yeah. So this is actually a really funny example. Part of that announcement is an announcement for app partners too, to say like, hey, your data that was just visible on the timeline is now visible in a lot more places across HubSpot, and you might want to make some changes to make that data more useful. And this is actually, we're looking at like one of those examples. Unfortunately, I can show you an account that has like, data I've looked at in there before, but you can see these are events that Arrows sends to the deal timeline and the contact timeline. What could be better here, and we're actually working with Arrows on this, so I don't feel bad about saying it, is Arrows probably needs to update the names of these events so that it's easier for you as a user to understand what they actually are. Because, okay, you can probably logic through, this is something that Arrows is sending to deals. I know what that is because I know what my Arrows app does, but it wouldn't be a lot more useful if the name was a lot more clear. What I want to point you to, though, is that you can now use this data. Well, so you have no data in here because it looks like you installed it for an unboxing. But if you had data, you could use it across all the different tools. So a big part of the reason we move these events in here is because if you hover over an event and hit the actions button, you get that use in option. And it gives you a list of the places that you can use it. And you can multi-select. So let's say I want to build, let's pretend these are like really clearly named, like onboarding viewed and onboarding completed. Like you could select both of them and hit customer journey analytics. It actually skips the data selection piece and pre-builds your journey with the event that you selected. Yep. So hit the use in, CJA, and then it's going to open it up for you. And it pre-builds your journey. Now you don't have data in these events, so it's not going to do anything, but I can show you what it looks like if it does. But essentially what this means is this app data that is, and again, the list of integrations that this covers is huge. I wish I could have listed them all in the product update. I think it would have made it a little bit more clear, like exactly which integrations this impacts, because I do think that's how people think. People think in terms of like my data coming from XYZ platform. But this is Zoom, Teams, MailChimp, PandaDoc, Eventbrite, DocuSign, Hotjar, Jira, RingCentral, Zendesk, LinkedIn. There's hundreds of different integrations that send these events. And now you can actually use them to fuel your attribution reporting, to fuel your journeys, to fuel your data sets. You can actually unlock that data across HubSpot and build more accurate cross-channel reporting is the pitch.
Okay. So this is... Go ahead, Casey.
This is cool. This is actually a couple of years ago. I had a client that asked me, how many people that watch our Vidyard video go on to request a sales demo, and I just built that.
And
there wasn't previously like a great way of doing that.
Yeah, this looks like a shortcut. Like if you want to use a tool like the customer journey builder here, and you have integrations in place, that's why I like to start from like this messy moment of, oh, we have all this. Like I try to implore people, like you have data already. Like, can we please use that first before we start buying a bunch of other data and trying to fill in? And this looks like a really great entry point to start to learn about these more complex aspects of HubSpot.
Yeah, definitely. Casey, if you have that example up in a portal, I would love to show it. But yeah, Vidyard is an example of someone that sends app events. And that's a great, like, very clear use case of something that you can now do that you couldn't do before this update. If you wanted to know how your Vidyard users converted to MQLs or went on to do this other thing, how many of them booked a demo after, that kind of stuff, you couldn't do it because that Vidyard data was in like timeline jail. It was trapped on the timeline. You couldn't actually use it anywhere. And now, like, literally hundreds of integrations just got the ability to answer a lot of questions that you couldn't answer previously. Oh, you're muted.
Has to happen all the time. Yeah, I mean, what I did for that client like 2 years ago was I made a list of all the contacts who had, this is crazy, all the contacts who had watched a Vidyard video and had submitted like our demo request form. and then started just like going in them and seeing which happened first.
Right. Like that's a nightmare.
That's crazy. Like I just said it out loud and I was like,
Now
that's
Do you want me to share your screen, Casey?
You can,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now that's something you can do with a couple of clicks, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not super impressive data, so like we can ignore that piece, but good to know.
Yeah. So what this is showing is all the people who have done this thing in a third-party platform who have gone on to fill out a form that's a HubSpot form. So it's connecting
And in this
your
date
function
range.
in the state range.
To be clear, they had to have watched the video and submitted the form in this date range, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you just made this just now, Casey?
Yeah. Yes. I did
It might
not.
be back. Yeah. Yeah, this didn't exist.
I mean,
before.
don't get me wrong. I'm a very good HubSpot user and can do things that most people can't. But yeah.
I mean,
No.
I think that
No,
this
it
is
was
the
very
part
easy.
that
Anyone can do this.
we want to help people get here, right? Like, because most people have no idea what event management means in HubSpot. How do we get them over that hump of like, well, if you've been doing this, this, and this already, like just go here and this will be this thing that's immediately available for you. And now you start to walk it back from there. It's like, oh, I see this app, but I don't see this app. And you start to understand, because we always make a big deal about, it's very clear when an app partner builds for HubSpot and tries to build into the infrastructure. And it's super interesting that I thought it would maybe be easier for people like Arrows that have been, building for HubSpot all along, but sounds like there's still, even that group has to make adjustments to this new world as well.
So, yes and no. So the thing that the other area that I would say has been like something that folks aren't like quite knowing right off the bat is when I talk to app partners, most of them assume that they had to do some like massive migration in order to unlock all these new features for customers. And we did that part for you. So we actually, anyone that was sending these old timeline events, we automatically allowed them to start be in reporting and be in event management and be in all these net new places. That value was unlocked like the day that we released this. It might sometimes requires things as simple as like a name change, which like that'll take care of like maybe 5 minutes to like update the name of their thing. Because previously the name was not really visible. And now the names of these are shown to the folks that have this app installed. So there are some like tiny tweaks like that, but there's no major migration work. No one has to wait to unlock this. It sounds like Casey was looking in a portal and like just saw, oh, Vidyard's in here. I would say the grand majority of these events are already labeled in a way that's clean. We took a look beforehand and we, had some conversations with folks about like getting them updated ahead of time. But any integration that was using these automatically got this unlocked for them. So overnight, a bunch of integrations with no work from those partners got a lot better. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And to go back to like the original reason that we're all gathered here today, like the purpose behind changing them from timeline events to app events is because now they are beyond the timeline, right?
Exactly. And so the naming is like just some inside baseball. The naming was to also align with the concept of app objects. So basically we have HubSpot objects, HubSpot events, HubSpot objects, contact company, deal, ticket, appointment, project, events, form submission, email, open page view. Then we have app objects and app events. Those are defined by third-party providers. So that's defined by someone who is not HubSpot. And then we have custom objects, custom events. Custom objects is track any relationship or process unique to your specific business. Custom events is track any action unique to your specific business. So some of the naming was to like keep everything rhyming across the data model, and hopefully that makes the data model easier to explain.
So the new updates aren't necessarily like so custom events versus app events. Please define that.
What's the difference? So admittedly, pre-inbound of this year, we were not super clear about who's supposed to use what and what it's for. And a big purpose of this release was to draw clearer lines. Like I know that last line in the product update got like an eyebrow raise of like, these are intended for public distribution only. That was for partners and for folks who were using them pre-inbound for just their individual businesses. So if app events are intended to be for public distribution only. And what that means is if I'm a partner, if I'm a third party like SaaS company, and I want to build an app which sends data to my customers' HubSpot instances, that's what app events are for. And everything from the experience to the limits is structured for that like third party only use case. Custom events is supposed to be like unique to your individual business. So if you're building something where you want to connect an action from something you own in your tech stack, your proprietary app, your mobile app, your website, that's going to be more appropriate for custom events. And we have limits. We just did a big lift to the rate limits, so you can send a lot more data a lot more quickly. Very tailored to like individualized use cases. So it's basically, am I trying to build something that I want to like publish in the marketplace or distribute to all my customers or reuse over and over and over again across customers? That's app events. I want to build something just for me. That's custom events.
Okay.
Does that, I noticed does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think like what we'd love to get to is like a clear path. Obviously, I'm just coming in here and clicking around today, but like back to our data model conversation, how do you build this out or think about this in a structured way so that you're not just saying, oh, I'd like to track this, and then I'd like to track this? Because I'm thinking like if I'm either mapping the data model, it can get very complex very quickly as you start to add these different layers of objects and properties and like even association labels and pipelines, and trying to understand what's happening in the portal. Now we add this event layer in that likely relates to those things. Is there any place in HubSpot or any kind of recommended way to map this out before just clicking on this button and saying?
So you're getting at our next step in our plan. We're working on getting events into the data model overview. I don't have like that'll happen on Tuesday, but that's coming in short order. The idea being you can then actually see what kinds of events is HubSpot generating for me and where do I need to fill in with tools across my tech stack. So right now the data model overview is just, it does not include event data. We're working with that team to expand that to be more inclusive of the whole data model. I also think there's a lot more we can do around like templating and suggesting data models. You're in this industry, this is what we know works. This, because actually most often, if we're in like if we're in a space where we're talking about customizing the data model for an individual customer, usually it's a combination of objects and events that is appropriate. You'll have an object for, like products, and then you're going to have events for product purchased, product updated, the verbs in your sentences, and the objects are the nouns. So yeah, that's a big next step for us, is getting events more prominent in the data model overview and providing more suggestions to folks about how they should set up their data model. But it's a good call out.
Because I really want to like help people do that part that always gets skipped.
Yeah.
But it's easy to come back with like, well, just clicking over here is way easier. And it's all in the context. But then you say like, I'm going to do that just so I can figure it out. And then I'll get to the documentation, which, always gets deprioritized in some way.
It does. It does.
So, the other updates that we wanted to hit,
about two more.
I think, are they both right here as far as?
Yeah, no, they're not in here. One, I actually I would need to ungate you for because it's a private beta. I'm happy to also just show it on my screen. I have it loaded. So it's up to you.
We can share your screen.
Yeah,
that's allowed.
Okay, cool. I didn't know if that broke the rules. I didn't know if it had to be like a authentic portal on
Well, I get as far as I can before it's clear, like, I don't have what I need in the portal to show stuff.
Oh, this is an interesting screen share experience. It's not letting me. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I'm X'd out of Slack. And let's see. Let's get everything closed out.
What are your thoughts right now, Casey, as we talk about all these different events?
I'm excited about the updates. I'm obviously excited about that report that I built and being able to like see things like that. I have also had similar situations in workflows and things where you just couldn't leverage these pieces, and that was at points like a stop prevented us from like executing on things we wanted to, that felt like they should be available because like we knew the data existed on the timeline. So I'm excited to hear about that. I think it is an ongoing challenge with that. I mean, to circle back on the event word, obviously an ongoing challenge, especially having that like event management group where custom events and app events both live. I think it makes sense to have them both there because they act similarly. But oh, Maggie just left.
Yeah, I think she's having some technical difficulties trying to share her screen.
No worries. Yeah, I like having them in one place because I do think they work in a similar way. Also, I know of some instances I've seen where like custom events are doing things that app events either could do or are also doing. So I think it adds a little bit of flexibility, visibility in that space as well. However, events are still mentioned in many different ways. And I can definitely see a world where I'm having conversations with people around like, why aren't my events here? Why aren't my events there? And that obviously causes some confusion.
Right. Yeah. The challenges of, welcome back, Maggie.
Share my screen. It like makes the stream freak out.
Okay. No worries.
Share my screen, and then Casey was going away, and then eventually the whole thing frozen and kicked me out, and I was like, okay, great. But I think maybe we'll low riskier, but we'll do it live, and I can ungate you for it if you pop me.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yep. Meant to be.
Well, do you have this account hooked up to a website, or do you have an account hooked up to a website that we can see?
Yes. Let me let's talk us through what the new updates are, and I'll get that ready.
So honestly, for inbound, we changed a bunch of stuff that hadn't been changed in like a decade. The tracking code is another one of those like oldest things at HubSpot type of things. It was like the third thing that HubSpot built. The tracking code is the tiny little snippet of code that gets put on your website that tracks anything that happens on your site. Historically, it has only captured page views automatically. So you could only know when somebody viewed a page. You didn't really know anything beyond that. What we released with auto capture is we now auto capture all website clicks, which is a big change, and kind of in response to a lot of the shifts that are happening on how folks buy and view websites is evolving quite quickly. I think there's a lot of panic that like websites are obsolete and the websites are going away. I don't know that I like personally share that sentiment. I actually think your website is just kind of moving down funnel. The top of funnel research is happening with GPT style, like AI tooling. And it's really important for those tools to have access to stuff from your website so that they can suggest your brand and provide accurate information. I know there's a lot of stuff around AI, EO, like AEO. I don't know. There's lots of different acronyms for it. But actually, I think what happens now is they do that top of funnel research with AI tooling. And then when they're ready to make a decision, get deeper info, get a demo, that's when they're going to your website, which to me actually increases the significance of your website. It changes your strategy, certainly. But we see in this era of AI traffic that even though traffic is dropping rapidly, conversion rates are increasing. By the time someone lands on your website, it's because they're more sure about what they're looking for. And a big part of the reason we released auto capture is because in this world, knowing just what pages people are viewing is actually not enough. You got to know what like actually grabs people. What are they engaging with? What is resonating and what is not? And that is why we shifted in this direction. So what auto capture does is using the tracking script that you already have. So it's not a new script, a new install. You don't need to install it. Oh, you already have one in there. Did you request it? And I must have approved you at some point.
Yeah, I hit all the beta buttons all the time. So
okay. Hit that Explorer.
Unless their email.
Is that here?
Yeah, hit that Explorer button.
Okay.
So this is where auto capture data is. Oh my God, and you have clicks to show. This is so exciting for me. Okay, so how this works is all of the raw clicks are tracked automatically. So every single time something clickable, that's the keyword. It has to be a clickable thing. We're not capturing like no man's land clicks or rage clicks because those are like largely from a CRM's perspective, kind of useless. Every time something clickable is clicked, it gets sent here. Now, the reason we don't unleash these all into your CRM is because page clicks are way, way higher volume than page views. So there's a potential for them to be like, for there to be cajillions of them. So we put them all into this like, I guess, holding pen effectively first, and they're called raw events. So these are all the raw events from your website. You can then take a look at them. You can click into one of them and we guess a name based on what we can tell from your website. But then you can click into one and hit verify. It's going to load your website and highlight what was actually clicked. Nice. Yeah. So if you hit verify, it's going to load the visualizer here.
Loading all the good stuff.
There we go. So now it's loaded your website and you can see, do you see in that bottom right corner how we've highlighted something for you?
Yeah.
Yep. So that's what was actually clicked. So this experience loads your website within HubSpot, tells you what was actually clicked on. If I'm a non-technical marketer, this is all I need to do. I need to just be like, okay, this is tracking what I think it's tracking. I can edit the name and then hit save. If I am more technical and I'm super familiar with the CSS on my website, I can use the criteria that's in that view that you have right there to modify exactly what makes this event fire. But again, you don't necessarily need to. If you're comfortable with what we're highlighting for you as being the thing that's tracked, you can just, I would recommend changing the name to something that's like more specific for you if the guess that we made is not good, or like editing the description, and then you hit save. Once you save it, it becomes a verified event. When it's a verified event, it's now unlocked across all of HubSpot. It's usable on the timeline. You can use it in scoring, in lists, or in segments. Sorry, that'll take me a long time. In scoring, in segments, in workflows, anywhere that you can use any other kinds of event data. So you can either keep going and keep verifying other things, or you can go back to HubSpot. I would just hit that top right back to HubSpot button,
Okay.
or top left
I'm
back
curious.
to HubSpot button. That just brings up that name list. Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
So then you click
That's
on
amazing, by the way. If I could just take a minute, like I don't know if people saw my face, but all these new visualizations in HubSpot, like that's where if all we accomplish today is that somebody comes in and clicks on this thing, and all of a sudden your data is just taking a new form because it's visualized in HubSpot in ways that we're so used to needing other tools for. This is why I so strongly feel there's opportunity for everybody to use the data that you already have to leverage the platform that you're already paying for.
Yeah. And this tracking code is almost definitely already on your website.
Yeah.
The really neat thing about auto capture, so this starts the day that you get into the beta. So it's like starting from whatever day you requested this moving forward. But in perpetuity, when you verify an event, we grab 90 days of historical data and we move it on over into your verified event. So as soon as you decide, I really want to track this thing, you automatically have a quarter's worth of data to go build your report right away, to send your workflow right away. Obviously, you don't have a quarter's worth of data because we just built this very recently. So, we literally weren't tracking this data before we built it. But let's say 90 days from now, you go to verify a new event, you'll have 90 days worth of data that gets moved on over for you. So so often, and I mean, I get asked this as a product manager. I'll have my boss ask me like how something performed, and I'll have to admit, oh, I didn't set up tracking on that button or on that flow. You no longer have to admit that you weren't tracking your blog click. You can actually just verify it, and you have your
can pretend like you thought of it all along.
That's the goal. Because a lot of times we can go into things with like really firm ideas of what we want to track, but a lot of the insight comes in things we didn't really anticipate. And that's what's been really cool chatting with folks about the beta of this. There's things with way more activity than they realized, or I'm getting a lot of like, oh, I didn't even think to track that. And that would be really useful for this one report that I'm building. Or wow, I could build a segment and then do some A/B testing to try and drive more engagement with this. There's like tons of possibilities.
Yeah, I sat back because I was like, yes, that happens all the time. Like I'm constantly like, oh, I didn't realize this thing was even important until you see the data on that thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the goal. That's auto capture. It's in private beta right now. Private beta is enterprise only, but I'll say like for the live stream is that will not be the case long term. Honestly, it was just because we could get it out the door really quickly if we kept it where we kept it. So,
yeah, I've often like made some assumptions like that on air about like, this is a real good case to be made for like just releasing to enterprise because it's a much smaller like set of portals that will actually give you a possible amount of data to do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's like where a lot of the scale is, so pretty easy to like stress test something with like the with like a lot of data really quickly. So yeah, no, I've gotten some reactions out the gate being like just enterprise, and I'm like, I promise it's just for right now, and that as soon as I can get it out more broadly, I will. But yeah, so that's auto capture. That was another one. And then this is the third one, object property snapshots for event data. So this is another one that if you don't really know what an event is, you're going to read this and you're going to be like, I don't actually understand what this is telling me. I tried to write it in a way that made that clear, but that's kind of hard. So object property snapshots for event data. What does this mean? As I mentioned, HubSpot tracks a ton of events for you out of the box, form submissions, email opens, all of those things. Those capture what happened at that exact moment. What they don't tell you is the context from your CRM that was relevant at that moment. And that leads to like kind of crummy reporting experiences, right? Because objects evolve. So if I historically have wanted to build a report on how different lifecycle stages engage with email, CTA, something like that, I want to know how my different lifecycle stages are engaging with this piece of content that I've sent out. What your report is building is actually the current lifecycle stage versus the historical action. So it's actually not accurate at all, right? It's telling you how people now were doing something previously. So what we've done is onto pretty much every event that you care about, we have stamped the life cycle stage and primary associative company of the contact at the time the event occurs. So form submission happens, email opens happens, CTA view happens. We grab what is Chris's life cycle stage right now, and we toss it onto the event itself, which makes your reporting a lot more accurate. So you can build a journey that says, how do leads that engage with the CTA convert to MQLs? And you actually have that contextual data from what was happening at the time that conversion happened. So that's object property snapshots. They automatically got enabled. Where do you find them? Let's go to any reporting tool. Let's go to CJA or CRB. We already looked at CJA, so let's spread the love here. Let's go to the custom report builder.
Yes. Thank you for spelling out your acronyms.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I realized there's so bottom hit reports or dashboards, honestly, either one. Hit create report. Now
it's interesting to hear HubSpot's internal like
go to the CRB, bro. What's taking you so long?
This is actually a question because I don't own the CRB. You wouldn't call it the CRB. You would just call it custom.
Never heard that.
So funny. Custom report builder. Yeah, custom report builder is what that means. I'm so sorry for the.
I got there, but
it's the kind of stuff we like to roll over on the show. So
yeah, hit next. Okay. And then under primary data source, hit the drop down. And then give me a scroll.
And then what?
Keep scrolling. Yeah.
Give her a scroll, she said.
Yeah, give me a
Search
scroll.
before scroll.
Hit CTA
Scroll.
activity. Yeah, CTA
Okay.
activities is good. Yeah. And hit next.
Scroll before search, Chris.
Search before scroll, Casey.
Oh, so this is like a good example of like I didn't grab the right thing live. Hit edit data sources again. I'm just gonna pick one I know. Scroll down. Let's see. Okay. Uncheck like go back to the top one. Uncheck CTAs. It doesn't let you. That's crazy to me. Okay. Just switch this to like marketing email. Type in marketing email. Marketing email.
No, definitely won't be any of that.
No, not marketing email. Marketing email. Open that up again. So it's going to be marketing email activities. Why are there 3 of them in your account? Marketing email activities.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you brought this up, Maggie. It's very confusing. I never know which one is the one I want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning this in real time.
This isn't your thing, but while I have you.
Okay, we're all learning together.
And then hit apply. You should only need that. Hit apply. Okay, now click on opened emails. All right, so we're looking at emails. I bailed on CTAs. Scroll down. They're right there. Scroll back up. Object property snapshots. So they're embedded in the event. So if you grab your event, they're going to be in there. So now when you're building your report, anytime you see this like object property snapshots or like contact : lifecycle stage, that's how you know you're using one of these snapshot properties. And what this is, and we added a tooltip to try and make it a little bit more clear of what this is when you're grabbing this value is the value that at the time the event occurred. So you're looking at email opens right now. And so this is the lifecycle stage at the time the event occurred. So I don't know if you have email data on this account, but if you want to build a really quick report, you can grab count of email opens and toss that in the y-axis.
Okay, let me go into a different account
one
here.
that has email opens. Yeah.
And let's go to report, create, next.
CRB.
I'm gonna get roasted for that one if someone from this.
No.
Marketing email activities is what it was, right?
Yeah, marketing email activities.
And then we've got here. Okay.
Okay. Now grab your contact lifecycle stage and add it to breakdown by. And then add count of, well, you're looking at bounced emails. Do you want to look at opens? I feel like that's a little more realistic example in terms of like value prop.
Am I looking at bounced emails?
You just have to select in the top.
You see opened email. You see all those events.
Yeah.
And then opened is in the middle of the list.
Yeah.
Okay, and it reset your report build. That's great. Okay. Breakdown by. And then you can add the count of opened emails to the y-axis. And then to the x-axis, I think you can probably add lifecycle stage again. Okay. So yeah, well, I mean, it shows it here. It doesn't actually, if you tossed lifecycle stage onto the x-axis too, so like you see under object property snapshot values, grab lifecycle stage and toss it under the x-axis too. It's just going to make a slightly better visual for you. Yep. Okay, so now it's a little bit more easy to see. So here what we have is how your email opens break down by lifecycle stage at the time the event occurred. The time frame on this by default is 30 days. In the filters at the top right, you can edit the time frame. But this is showing you how the lifecycle stages are engaging with your emails, and it's actually when they did the email. I think this is really coolest in journeys because you can do things like what were they at the time and how have they converted to the next stage. So like how
Maggie, do you know how many times people have asked me that question?
Yeah, that's perfect in journeys now, because now you can say people who have submitted this form who were a lead at the time, and then how have they converted to MQLs or converted to SQLs? So I think it lands really well in journeys. CRB is really clear because you can get like the bars and separate visuals, which I think makes it easier to crack. But
what is? Did you say CRB again?
A custom report builder, yeah.
Okay.
Custom report
Just making
builder.
sure. Okay.
You also had a journey one. A journey. What was your?
Journey analytics.
CGA?
Is why they don't let me
on. CJA? Is that what that one was?
That's why they don't let me on the web.
I think what we need is more acronyms. I've been saying that for years.
I'm definitely gonna leverage these inside acronyms when I'm talking to product managers. So just
honestly, it will make things land. But HubSpot internally, we rally against acronyms for sure. So I'm breaking a cardinal sin. This is what happens when you put me on a live stream. That is.
And you didn't know you were going to be on a live stream.
Yeah, I had my slide deck. Yeah. So yeah, that's the other big one. Custom events, you can select your own properties to add on to. So that's a really cool, like sort of niche one to like, when you hear it on the surface, you're like, what would I use that for? Really big use case for custom events is product usage data. So how often are people logging into my app? How often are they using feature X, feature Y? A really cool use case that I've seen implemented a lot with it so far is folks enriching their custom events with the contact owner at the time the event occurred. Because if you want to know which of your reps is actually driving product usage and logins, if you build that report today, again, you're looking at current ownership versus historic login data. So it's not really accurate because accounts change hands all the time. But if you're actually enriching your custom events with who owned it at the time the event occurred, you can build an annual report of which rep is actually driving the most usage of the product. So that's the kind of thing that the custom events being able to be enriched with their own properties would be used for.
And this is the use case. Like I've seen some people create like custom properties for snapshots, and then they create a bunch of like workflows to make sure if they have that, if they've built that, how do you recommend they start leveraging the new tools? Is it an easy switch?
Yeah. So, I mean, if all you were doing that for was capturing like point in time lifecycle stage, you don't have to do anything. We started stamping these in the last couple of months. So you'll have like a couple of months worth of data in there for you already. And so you can just pivot and try to use those. I will say we are going to be leaning a lot harder. This is like my like preview of what's to come again, but we're going to be leaning a lot harder into that snapshot concept. So if you're someone that has some crazy hacky thing that you've built to snapshot data, call me. I want to hear about it so that we can make it so you have to you can stop doing that. But yeah, if it's custom event data that you're snapshotting, you could fully build your own custom snapshots onto your events as is. If you're tracking lifecycle stage changes based on actions that happen in HubSpot, you can also just start using those as is. But if you aren't satisfied by either of those two use cases, you should call me and we should talk about it.
And last question, I appreciate you going along. It's just for contacts and companies right now. Is that correct?
Just contact-based events. Yeah. So things that contacts do today. Custom events, it can be any object. But for the like standard ones that we are enriching across the board for you automatically, it's just contact-based events.
Okay. So if I had other objects that travel along pipelines or journeys, I could do this right now for them with custom events.
So you would have to be tracking the thing that you wanted to change with custom events. I will say I have seen folks do some pretty hacky things with custom events and custom coded workflow actions. I actually had someone send me a setup the other day where they were I won't name them on this video, but they were doing an entire custom coded workflow to just snapshot a bunch of pipeline data and create it as a custom event. So there's definitely like workarounds. But I would say that's an example that I would want to see exactly what you mean and what's the use case and so that we can solve that kind of stuff better for you out of the box. But if you're tracking custom events for that set of changes, then you can do that enrichment today. Yeah.
Okay. Because I'd like to focus on quote to cash and post-sales order management. And if we're trying to manage objects like in association with humans or companies, like having those historical snapshots of understanding what was true at that time for all of the objects involved in the situation.
Yeah.
I could see that being very valuable.
Have you heard of property change events? Do you use those at all?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. That's, I would say, for tracking some of those like property value changes, folks do use those for that quite often. It's not quite the same as like a true snapshot, but that can help solve for some of those use cases sometimes.
Right. Okay. Cool.
We can set up, I would love to set up more time to like see, like deep dive into a use case that you're wrangling with.
Yeah, I always think a little bit bigger than I can chew sometimes. So any way we can make that kind of post-sales management experience in HubSpot easier from a visual, like visibility, so much is related to status updates and then having to, discover what was true once upon a time.
Right.
All of this is steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
And honestly, I know that Casey would agree that we could talk to you all day about this stuff.
You're like, get off the stream.
No.
Like, I mean, we proved last week that we can go for a while.
Yeah, that was impressive. Yeah.
With our 3-hour and 2-hour streams, but we got the job done. Casey, anything else for Maggie before we wrap up today?
Not today. Hope to do it again.
Yeah, literally anytime. This kind of thing is my dream. So love chatting about it. I hope it made some of these product updates a little more clear and that I've redeemed myself slightly. And would be happy to be back anytime you guys would have me.
Awesome. No, it certainly did help clarify a lot of things. Like even just hopefully everybody understands like our goal is like we're in these portals every single day. And I did not know that I had access to these things because there's so much updating happening. And now that I've just done it one time, I click over to see, I'm very interested in and immediately understand the value that is already available. And that's our goal with these sessions, is just to try and cover that awareness gap as often as possible in new ways, because most of these portals are not just sitting waiting
and clicking around randomly
from scratch.
Right.
Like, okay, everything's calm today. I guess I'm gonna go set up events.
Yeah.
It's never works like that. Meanwhile, like Casey mentioned, we get asked for stuff like this like all the time. So this was super helpful, and we'll definitely take you up on your offer of coming back. But until next time, thanks so much for joining us today, Maggie.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
See everybody next time. Have a great week.